All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this European Commission's webinar on intercultural communication, strategies for culturally responsive teaching. This webinar is organized by the European School Education Platform, which we invite you to take a look at your earliest convenience. My colleague Marta will post all the necessary links in the chat. And today is a very unique opportunity for all of us to reflect on the importance of building inclusive, culturally responsive classrooms that foster meaningful connections with students. We will explore practical strategies for enhancing cultural awareness, embracing diverse communication styles, and addressing cultural misunderstandings. Through hands-on activities, you'll be able to apply these strategies in real time, share experiences, and strengthen your ability to support students from a diverse background. Without further delays, I want to welcome today's expert, Mary Masterson. Mary is an associate professor of education at the University of Limerick School of Education in Ireland, and with a background as a post-primary teacher of German, history, and ICT, she brings a wealth of experience to her current role. Holding a PhD in intercultural education and foreign language pedagogy, Mary is a seasoned multilingual educator, researcher, and teacher trainer. She also serves as Ireland's eTwinning ambassador for initial teacher education, supporting educators in cross-cultural and digital learning initiatives. Mary, the virtual stage is all yours.
So everybody is welcome here today. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to talk to you today about a topic that's very close to my heart on intercultural communication and intercultural understanding. So I will just share my screen now, if that's okay. And I would welcome if anybody has any questions. You will have my contact details, or you can put them into the chat, whatever is most suitable to yourselves. So I will share now my slides. So today's topic, as Kira said, is about intercultural communication. So just, I suppose, a short bio about myself. I'm a teacher educator at the School of Education in the University of Limerick in Ireland, and I've been working in teacher education for the past 17 years. I've over 30 years altogether in education, having qualified as a teacher for several subjects for German history and ICT. I've been an active eTwinner since 2006, so I was there at almost at the beginning. And I obtained my PhD and several years ago, looking really at how to cultivate cultural awareness, improve intercultural communication and understanding in language classrooms in schools. So I looked at how in our teaching can we help our learners engage more effectively with other cultures. So just to let you know where I work at the University of Limerick. That university here in the map of Ireland is a very small country, as some of you will know, many of you will know, and we are a fairly new university, and we offer many different programs to become secondary school teachers, to work with students from the age of 12 to 18. So we offer languages, science, technology, music, physical education. So many, many different diverse disciplines we offer to those young people who would like to become future teachers. We also offer postgraduate opportunities as well for those that maybe later on may decide to become a teacher. So there's many different options to become a teacher. And we have a very beautiful campus, and we're very well known worldwide because we've a very green campus, a very sustainable, and we've many sporting and music opportunities there. So we're very well known, as well as being a very good reputation in education. So I have been conducting e-twinning projects for many years. I have started off as a secondary school teacher myself, and I found my learners were more motivated and more interested. And it was a way I found to enable them to be active learners as well, and to engage with across the disciplines with peers of a similar age, and really to get to know others. By staying in Ireland and in other countries, you didn't have to travel, an expensive travel. You could actually in your own classroom be and engage in this virtual classroom situation. So that's been very effective. I also try and encourage teachers in Ireland, qualified as well as those that are student teachers, to become familiar with the e-twinning program, and hopefully when they become our own students, become teachers qualified, that they will engage and bring the e-twinning program or get involved in projects that are ready in schools. So that's a little bit about myself and my context. So what will we be doing today? We're going to look at the role of intercultural communication in e-twinning projects. We're also going to look, and I'm not going to give you too much theory, but I'm going to give you some, because it's nice to learn something new, I think. So I'm going to introduce you on the theory of cultural awareness, talk to you about the model of cultural iceberg, so about scripts and schemata theory, perception and stereotypes. You may be familiar with some of these things already, some of you. If not, I'll give you an introduction, and I'll also point you at the end to some resources if you wanted to get more information yourselves. I will talk to you about intercultural communication strategies. What are these, and give you some examples. And I will share with you, and I'm very excited actually to share you with this e-learning platform, which is open access, which means it is free. It was developed on the basis of an Erasmus Plus project, and last year it was completed, and I'm part of that international team. And that platform allows continuous professional development. It has loads of resources about working in multicultural, multilingual classrooms. It has material, because I myself added about e-twinning, looking at how language sensitive teaching approaches, intercultural responsive teaching approaches. So I think that's quite a nice platform for you if you have an interest in this area, to have a browse, and you might find something that's of interest to you. I will also recommend a book that's also open access that came out of this project, and some additional reading. So you'll have a lot leaving after this webinar, hopefully. In the future, if you have an interest in something, you can further, your knowledge as well. So hopefully that will be something you will find good and worthwhile. So what are the learning outcomes for today's webinar? Number one is to develop an appreciation of the role of intercultural communication in e-twinning projects. So just to think about what maybe a little bit more carefully, you might be doing a project that seems on a totally different area, but really, if you look at it, that opportunity to experience other perspectives from others, from different countries, whether your colleagues that you're working on the team with, planning the project as well, for us teachers is important too. That is for us ourselves to learn, and our own students as well in turn. Another learning objective is for you to become familiar with intercultural communication theory and practice. And thirdly, another learning outcome would be to develop an understanding on how teachers can support their learners manage intercultural communication effectively in e-twinning projects. Intercultural communication just doesn't happen. We as pedagogues, yourselves as teachers, teacher educators working on projects, you have a role, a professional role to support your learners, develop and help them and guide them and navigate the intercultural space. So, intercultural communication and e-twinning projects. So this is something that maybe you could reflect on, because I've been talking a little bit, and maybe share your thoughts in the chat. How can e-twinning facilitate intercultural communication? So please, if you don't mind, in the chat, put in some of your ideas on that in the chat. So I hope you were able to put in the chat there some of your ideas, because many of you have been undertaking e-twinning projects, and maybe some of you are new as well, and it's just something maybe to be aware of and to think about. How can what role, how is intercultural communication an integral, like a key part of e-twinning projects? So we have here, I agree, e-twinning, somebody wrote, thank you for your comments. E-twin enhances and promotes cultural understanding through dialogue and collaboration, 100%. Very perceptive there. And I'll talk about, actually, I do talk about dialogue, the role of it, and collaboration. Sharing common values is a good chance, someone else wrote. Any nationalities can connect to each other easily without traveling. And I love this in terms of equality of access for the less well-off learner, that the less well-off learner isn't disadvantaged, getting the international part of the education of the curriculum. It isn't about that. It isn't about that you can afford to travel and live abroad. You can actually do it, continuing to live at home and go to your normal school. So that's wonderful. Cultural self-disclosure, sharing values, practices, best practices, and a twin space is totally secure. Absolutely. So that's important as well to have, and the teachers are the moderators as well, so they will have the oversight. So this is wonderful. And I'll just take one last one and then I'll move on, but they're absolutely very good thoughts. So thank you for sharing. And just the very last one is maybe showing and explaining our good cultural points and letting our partners do the same. The more we have the opportunity to explain and listen to the other parts, the better. Exactly. And understanding other cultures and exchanging ideas. Wonderful. So you already have a lot of experience, many of you, on intercultural communication and thinking about it. So just some of my own thoughts as well, based on my own experiences. I found that e-twinning gives students an international perspective to their learning and education, to the broadening out the curriculum, and supports the development of empathy and cultural awareness. So that ability to not to be judgy, not to judge others, to have an understanding of a different way of maybe viewing a different lifestyle, different emphasis, different routines, cultures, practices, and that awareness that culture does shape how we behave, how we think, and maybe many times we're not aware. It's something, this is the way we do things around here, almost that way of being. So that's a little bit, I think, the international perspective. Is anybody else that didn't have an opportunity to write something, the chat would like to add something there about the international perspective? How maybe any experience about empathy development you've seen, or cultural awareness. And empathy is very important. We know that that a person from a different culture doesn't feel that they're being judged, that they're being unfairly compared, that there's acknowledged, I am me, this is who I am, and that's respected, tolerated, and appreciated and valued. And a lot of my research in the multicultural area, multilingual, would talk about the importance of including culture and given space in the classroom for other languages to make contributions, not to see as almost that maybe if that if you don't have the language of instruction, you're disadvantaged, that they can express themselves, express their cultures. So important. So just some here I can see in the chat about the international perspective, looking at the empathy and cultural awareness aspect. Experience that perspectives are always relative, never ever absolute. Exactly. Perspectives are relative. Perspectives are there's no dominant one. One isn't better than the other. So that's the thing, that the multi-perspective approach, that one accepts, respects, and listens to and dialogues with others to understand another viewpoint, how one sees the world. Talking about the international perspective can lead to building a friendship without judging. That is it. That's that respect. Is so important. Engaging students in global projects to think globally and act locally. Yes, that's about that citizenship, global citizenship education through e-twinning. There's policy developments that's coming. We can, through e-twinning our projects, we can open up a small area to wider thinking and of an understanding and appreciation of different, maybe things that are of importance in different cultures, particular issues might impact in particular ways on different cultures, and learn about that firsthand in a real way from others who are living through it. So that's wonderful. Thank you again. This is great. It's lovely just for you, I think, important that you can give your ideas as well and share them with the group. This is a quote from an Irish teacher who's an e-twinner, and this is what Owen has said about e-twinning programs and looking at that intercultural aspect. Our school benefited hugely for being involved in e-twinning. The work ethic and enthusiasm of the teachers and pupils involved stimulated a desire to foster European citizenship among the children of our school. They made valuable connections with friends from all around Europe. I would encourage any school to get involved. And that is it. It's really, as well, I think one of the comments I seen, it's the opportunity, to get in touch so easily with peers and build relationships, break down barriers, try and overcome any misunderstandings that might come from the cultural, aspect of who we are, and talk about things and work things out. And that leads, I think, to more peace in the world. If there was more of this, less judgment, and a little bit more willingness to listen and to take, you may not agree always, but to accept this is the way someone else has their culture has impacted on their worldviews. So this is Owen. So it's some intercultural skills. So what are we talking about? This is where we come in as the teachers, as the pedagogues. Learners need support in order to develop the intercultural communication skills to enable effective communication with people from different cultural backgrounds. I think this is essential. The learners, it's not enough for learners just to meet others from different cultures, but we as the teachers in our projects have to also to think about how we can help and support our learners to be more effective in their communication, maybe not to take offense, maybe to probe a bit, ask why you say this, maybe to share, well, this is the way I think about it. This is the way I'm experiencing this, whatever they're talking about. So this is so important that learners, and that's why being an e-twinning teacher, you really have to be involved. You know, you have to have an oversight. You have to almost, you know, have an overview of every, you know, what the communication's happening. Keep an eye on that. See, where do I need as a teacher maybe to have a talk to my students, you know, to create awareness, maybe work on some aspect. Because otherwise, if learners take offense or they may feel that they're not understood, you know, maybe it would a little bit of more pedagogy, a bit of more support, that sometimes, you know, work may not become so easily derailed. You can get a project, keep going and keep the enthusiasm, and not build an in group and an outer group. That this is a group, we're a group working together on a common project, and we're a team, we're a big collaboration. So that's team building skills as well. Careful consideration must be given to the question of how to develop skills of interpretation and analysis that can help people understand cultural differences. So, interpretation, how I perceive something, may not necessarily be the same as how somebody from a different culture may perceive the exact same thing. And to think about maybe why is this? This is this idea, know thyself to understand others. To think about, well, why do I think like this? Why do I behave in this way? Why do I value this? And, you know, that little bit of self-probing as well. And then to understand, well, why is this person saying this? Why is this important to them? You know, maybe their style of communication, how they view things, you know, expectations. So that is something you have to, you know, to teach your learners this interrogation skills, almost like being cultural detectives. An interrogative mindset may assist in the interrogation of the self and other, which is the foundation for successful intercultural communication. If you were going to go away today after, you know, giving up your Friday afternoon to come to this webinar and think, well, what is a key takeaway? I would think about this. Know thyself. So interrogate the self to understand others. So you can't just think about the other. You must also, that's relational. You must also relate maybe back to yourself, how this makes me feel, why I think like this, where does this come from? And that can be done in a classroom situation with a group can chat about that as well. The class could talk about it. The group, you know, so that's, you know, talking, dialoguing, reflection, asking questions. These are the skills of intercultural communication, actually. They're active skills. So it's not learning off facts, and I have an article coming out, a chapter in a book on this. It's not about fact learning off by heart. It's about experiential education, lived experience, exchanging stories, exchanging experiences, and talking about them. These are the essential parts of intercultural communication. So, but I suppose with all this talk about intercultural communication skills, you may ask yourself, how best can this objective be that we can have in our projects that are where intercultural communication skills are doing the job, they're effective, they're enabling our students carry out the project in a meaningful, fun, interactive way, where everybody feels, you know, acknowledged, respected, and, you know, appreciated. So these are some things. So I'm going to just a few slides on theory, okay? So the first, I suppose, important part of cultural learning is developing cultural awareness. This is so important. And cultural awareness is about broadening up perspectives, about being able to adopt other perspectives, the other and the foreign, but without judgment, being able to appreciate somebody else from because of a different culture, has maybe a different way of understanding things, of doing things. So that's the broadening, looking at the personal and thinking maybe not ethnocentric way of viewing, that is just my way of doing things, my way of looking at things, that there's no hierarchy in culture, in types of ways of living. They're just different. They exist and culture is dynamic. It changes. We have many different aspects to our identity, and especially now, I think, with the connection so easily, interconnectedness, across the globe, that actually our identities are changing rapidly when we come into contact with others who have different languages, different ethnic backgrounds, different religions, difference in priorities. So this is, I think, is something that's of value in the classroom to talk about the cultural awareness. So cultural awareness, and just a few ideas to think about, is understanding cultural frames. So cultural awareness involves recognizing how personal cultural beliefs, values, and perspectives shape one's worldview, and understanding that others may have different frames of reference. And it's not that somebody uh, doesn't appreciate you if they think differently. It's just the way that person, their own culture, the way they view, almost like the glasses, the lens they put on. It's a way of interpreting the world. Challenging preconceptions. So developing cultural awareness helps learners examine and deconstruct stereotypes, fostering empathy. That is where I suppose the goal is, the empathy. I may not live like you, but I can appreciate that this is your way of living. This is the way your approach to something. This is the way what you value. These are the beliefs you have. And having that empathy there is something, I think, of importance in today's world for social cohesion, living together in diverse multicultural societies. Dialogue, and somebody, I think one or two people in the chat had mentioned earlier this, and spot on, about dialogue and exchange. Open dialogue is essential for sharing cultural knowledge, broadening perspectives, and enhancing self-awareness. So it's not going to happen, cultural awareness, if we're in the cell. We have to be in our projects, working with others, talking to others, exchanging, whether it be artifacts, whether we use our words, whether we exchange resources, whatever, whether we create something new together. So that is very much active learning. So active learning is essential for cultural awareness development. And collaborative learning, everything to do with e-twinning, if you think about it. The aspects of e-twinning projects. Sharing personal stories in a collaborative environment supports mutual understanding. So it's not one way, it's mutual. And the growth of cultural awareness. And my own research would show cultural awareness takes time to develop. It's a development, and it's not, and it can ebb and flow. And that's where we come in as the teachers to lend that supportive role and to help our learners, I suppose, to navigate differences in cultures that they encounter when they're engaging in e-twinning. So cultural exchange, e-twinning projects connect classrooms across Europe, allowing students to share their culture. Virtual collaboration helps students appreciate diverse perspectives. Empathy development. Engaging with peers from different backgrounds promotes understanding and empathy. So important. Students learn to view the world through multiple cultural lenses. Breaking stereotypes. Interactive projects challenge preconceived notions and stereotypes. Students gain a deeper, more accurate understanding of other cultures. Collaborative learning. E-twinning encourages teamwork across borders. Collaborative activities broaden students' cultural knowledge and awareness. Language skills enhancement. Projects often involve using different languages, enhancing communication skills. Language learning deepens cultural connections and awareness. Language, like the language, is the vehicle for our culture. Language and culture are very, the two sides to the one coin. So, and that is what I'm talking about sometimes. We talk about language sensitive teaching that we bring into our classrooms. If we have multicultural projects, multicultural classrooms, we give space for other languages to come in, for other languages to can make contributions as well. We don't say it has to be a monolingual, a monocultural. We'd never do an e-twinning project just monocultural. It wouldn't be real, to be authentic, to allow people to be people, to express who they are. We need to open up our projects to this very important aspect of the intercultural. So e-twinning projects definitely can foster cultural awareness. Intercultural learners can do so too if they can listen to others and see the world through their eyes. Intra and intercultural understanding is a process in which misunderstandings often occur, but in which understanding is also possible. So we're not trying to eliminate misunderstandings or to say my project isn't successful because misunderstandings have occurred. It's what you do with misunderstandings that makes the difference. That's maybe the first step, initiates a conversation about this misunderstanding, to probe, dig deeper. I think that's like stereotypes are also great opportunities for learning, to deconstruct them, reconstruct maybe new ways of viewing what we had maybe preconceived ideas. Fleming explains that cultural awareness involves a process of defamiliarization. So what we're familiar with, looking at it almost with a pair of glasses, maybe foreign sort of glasses that give us a different angle, a different perspective, pointing out the central aim to destabilize and challenge normal ways in which the world is seen and experienced. And that can be so, interesting to look at something and to see something new that one maybe did not see before. One was blinded perhaps by one's own culture. The task of developing awareness of cultures is not straightforward, and as we use our own understanding to interpret the culture we study and make possible meanings are available for us to select. So we enhance, we broaden out our perspectives if we foster cultural awareness in our projects as one of the goals. There will be challenges, okay? So complex interpretation. Understanding cultures is complex because we use our own cultural lens to interpret what we study. That's what we have done subconsciously, what we do. Our personal experiences and biases influence how we perceive and understand other cultures. It's the awareness that it's like that is the important thing. Multiple meanings. Cultures are rich with diverse meanings and interpretations. They're fascinating cultures as a result. There are many possible meanings and perspectives to select from when studying a culture. And subjectivity. Cultural awareness is subjective. Different individuals may interpret the same cultural elements differently. Awareness requires recognizing the limitations of our own cultural viewpoint. So there will always be, it's not that it's reducing a deficit view of the individual, it's just the way it is. An ongoing process. Developing cultural awareness is an ongoing process that involves continuous learning and reflection. It requires openness to multiple interpretations and a willingness to challenge personal biases, to say, hands up, I have some biases, but to interpret that. And why is this? Why do I think like that? Why am I reacting like this? And that is where the real learning happens. And if we encourage that with our learners, that's important. This is a model I developed myself on cultural awareness. So dialogue, if you can see the circle here. Do you see? it's dialogue is key. And somebody actually did mention in the chat about dialogue already. They identified it. Prior knowledge, previous experience will influence how I look at things. But cultural schemata and scripts, how my perceptions, how things should be, the values and beliefs that we have from birth through socialization process, cultural norms that we never usually question, and attitudes and behaviors. That, but if we dialogue, talk about it, exchange our ideas on things, that's where the continuous dialogue, how we're learning in our e-twinning projects. So cultural schemata these are broader cognitive structures that help us organize and interpret information based on past experiences. So help us understand things. Schemata can include knowledge about people, like how they should be, how they should speak, how they should behave, events, how things should be run, ways of doing things, or objects. For instance, a schema about holidays might include activities like traveling, sightseeing, and relaxing. Different cultural contexts influence perceptions and behaviors. So cultures can differ in terms of values, norms, and practices. A good example, there may be not, if you had a project on how we look at holidays, how we look at downtime, maybe different cultures do different things. Maybe they place less value on certain aspects and other cultures more value on certain aspects. And that's where cultural similarities and differences occur. And that's to talk about that, to dialogue about these things. That's where the learning is happening. And scripts then are structured sequences of events or actions that people expect to happen in particular situations. For example, a restaurant script includes steps like being seated, ordering food, eating how you eat. Do you use utensils? Do you not? You're paying the bill. So all the scripts, that's kind of the rules almost that we expect. But when we are engaging with people from different cultures, then the scripts could be different. And we know that maybe certain cultures can be so different to others. There can be huge differences, and others are more similar. So that's all that makes an inclusive and a diverse world so exciting when we get to know these things. So e-twinning projects often involve collaboration between schools or groups from different countries, which can provide rich examples of cultural schemata and scripts leading to misunderstandings. So this is where, misunderstandings can happen, where there's a great difference in how people view the rules of their countries, how they interpret things, the way they do things around here. Cultural misunderstandings are common and are a natural part of engaging with other cultures, as underlying cultural frameworks may differ. That's just a thing to remember. So misunderstandings are natural. Understanding and acknowledging different cultural schemata and scripts can enhance cross-cultural collaboration and minimize misunderstandings. And some ideas for e-twinning projects: Christmas in different countries, differences in food, rituals, greetings. Exciting projects can be carried out. Anything at all that you think that your class can come up with, brainstorm, they'd like to talk about, to find out, if they're working maybe with other countries, or maybe one other, or maybe several. Festivals. Different countries celebrate key events with different emphasis. Friendship. I love the one on friendship. I've carried out that one myself. What is a good friend? The teenagers love that one. Friendship. Differing understandings of what is a good friend. Food. Favorite food. Food associated with different events, like the role of food in certain cultures, what it means, all these things. And I'm sure some of you, can you put into the chat any other projects that you have carried out that maybe the group might be interested in, something along similar lines? Any ideas there? In the chat, you could put in any ideas of any you found, that was interesting for your class, that you enjoyed doing. Music, I see here, absolutely. Music, you know, what it means in different cultures, significance points. So absolutely. So there's so much. I'm sure you have lots more that you have you know, you have dance, I see here, apps, cooking. You know, projects, e-twinning projects don't have to be complicated. It's about the dialogue and the exchange and traditions, you know, the Olympics, yet sports, you know, something that's current at the moment, books, traditions, folklore, fascinating, food waste, sport, even ideas about what we do for the climate, you know, things that are, you know, our climate change, what, where is it at in our particular area or local area, things like that. So that's, yeah, so much that can be done on this area in e-twinning. So the cultural iceberg, I just wanted to show you there will be visible and invisible aspects of culture. So the aspects, if you think about things you can see that are visible, like the language or the food, but below the waterline, we have the values and beliefs, you know, the scripts and the schemata that almost control, you know, that influence and shape these things that are not many times made visible. And that is, how do you do that? And I see a lovely idea for a project, fairy tales from around the countries, Erasmus project, wonderful. You know, I would think that is an absolutely a lovely one there. So again, you know, there's so much that can be done. So there's so much that is the cultural iceberg there. So this model explains that misunderstandings can occur when people from different backgrounds interact, as much of culture's influence is subtle and not immediate apparent. So it's hidden. So this is why the dialogue and the self-reflection, the probing, this is where that comes in, is very important. So the iceberg model emphasizes the importance of looking at perceptions, behaviors, attitudes beyond the visible aspects of culture to understand the deeper, the more complex layers of people's thoughts, feelings, and attitudes. What is hidden is interesting. And perception, really, we're looking at in the field of intercultural learning. There is a broad agreement that self-perception is crucial for learning through intercultural communication. So you have to really look at the self. Perception is shaped by cultural backgrounds, which influences how individuals interpret their surroundings. Interests, values, and culture act as filters, affecting the meaning people derive from their experiences. Culture provides the framework for much of our interpretation of events. When a diverse group of people encounters similar experiences, such as trying new foods or participating in sports, culture often leads to shared meanings and comparable behaviors. So it's about when you come together, if you create something new, whether you bake something, build something, create a dance movement together, a sport, whatever you're doing together as the group, something new can also occur. So e-twinning projects, they give opportunity for the co-construction of cultural knowledge. And really important is co-construction, dialoguing with the partners. Kira, we nearly...
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you to slowly start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
And within the next 5-10 minutes, and then there's a little bit of time for questions as well.
I will.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
So the co-construction of cultural knowledge, students engage in a collaborative process of co-constructing new cultural knowledge. Learning is not a passive reception of information, but an active, participatory effort involving the students in the creation of knowledge. Diversity of values, beliefs, assumptions, and practices, complexities within different cultural societies, part and parcel of our world, our global world. Online collaboration, virtual classrooms, discussion forums, or other digital tools allow students to connect and interact despite geographical distances. And I think that's wonderful about e-twinning. So there's some projects there. One, I'll just introduce this one. It's called the ABCs project, one that I really love, where students are either in a tandem, so they work with one partner or a triad or more partners, and each person writes their life story, depending on their age. If they're young children, their life story could be through visualization, drawings, the graphics. The older children could write with words. You can do your autobiography in your mother tongue, your first language. You don't have to do the language of instruction. So you write about key moments in your life, in your family, things that make you happy, that big events maybe in your life, significant things for you, and you write about yourself. Then you exchange your life story with your partner or partners, and you write based on that, or you draw again, if you're younger, the biography of somebody else. That's so interesting, how you interpret what they're saying. This is me. And then you do a cross-cultural analysis on looking at that comparison. Like, what did the new people, like, what did they think, or why did they say this about me? And have a talk about the similarities and differences, or maybe you might have to correct, or this isn't quite right about me, and then do this chatting, explaining. So it's very interactive, and it's a wonderful, respectful, reciprocal way, I think, of developing new cultural knowledge. I really like that one. So there's loads of them you can do. It's about intercultural exchange, dialogue, and developing the global perspective. That's another model I developed about how to get empathy. It's really about co-constructing meaning, talking together about things, interpreting it's always about dialogue. That's the key, talking. So stereotypes are very common and they're natural. And they can help people, I suppose, when you deconstruct them and say, well, why do you think this? Why are you saying this? Getting away from all, like, say, Irish people, or Ireland is like that, or France or Tunisia or whatever. Talking about actually a country is made up of individuals who want, to be acknowledged for them as an individual rather than the group think. So I'm going to move on, because I wanted to, you can have a look at that, the slides again, but I wanted to show you something I think that you might like. There's some just ideas from projects. This reading is promoting multilingual practices in diverse schools. So this is a very, very interesting a book that somebody might like to get a little bit more, in the literature. They might get more ideas about in Greece, what it's like in intercultural school with the children who are from refugee backgrounds, asylum seekers, or looking at the situation in Ireland, in Germany, in Poland, looking at different countries, how they manage that multicultural classroom space there, and it's open access. And here, this e-learning platform, this is the link here, and you'll have the slides, and you can click. You just have to register. You send an email to it. When you can access the slides, you'll see to this email address. They give your email address and your name, and then you get full access there to a lot of resources, workshop like working trauma and infused teaching, language sensitive, language cultural sensitive teaching. So I think that could be something, like a resource for the future for you. And there's some of my own writings. I have dedicated a lot of my time to a lot of my work is in e-twinning and the cultural learning, intercultural space. So I have quite a few publications on that as well. They're readily available as well if you're interested. So I won't hold you. You might look at the different tools that are available there, but I suppose just something for you individually to think about here. So I'll leave you with your idea to think about something. What is your key takeaway from today's workshop? How will you apply what you've learned in your classroom? What topics would you like to explore further? And what is one new strategy you plan to implement in your classroom? So maybe if you had any question there, if you just maybe in bullet point, mind sharing in the chat anything there that speaks to you that you'd like to share with the group. It'd be lovely for us all to see what are you thinking. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you found this webinar beneficial. It was a pleasure to be here today. And thank you, Ciara and Marta, for all the behind the scenes work to get this webinar up and running. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mary, for this inspiring presentation and for sharing all of your knowledge with us. I am sure that the participants have learned a lot, and we received a lot of positive comments in the chat. There's also a few questions that came in. I was wondering, there was one question that came in asking, okay, how do I get started with this? Like, what's a practical next step I can do in my classroom, in my teaching team? Can you maybe give them
Yes.
a little stepping stone?
Well, I think if we went back to you know, any something common, if you're working on a project about whatever, say music in the class, something music related, well then it's, you know, you talk about, maybe you ask questions. What does this, you know, when I think about music in my country or whatever, my community, what are the main aspects of this for my community? And then get the other partner to talk about that. And then maybe to say, well, get a Venn diagram, maybe chart similarities, differences, and then like common, you'll always find some common ground. And then as an opportunity, as a springboard, have a class discussion. You know, what you want to, as a teacher, then when you be aware, stereotypes will occur, misunderstandings will occur, there could be intercultural conflict, but not to become disheartened and say, that is not my good teaching. No, that's a great sign, I think, of real learning, real activity. So having an awareness that this is natural, these parts of the intercultural space, that, and to have that appreciation and to teach your students and to model that in our interaction with others is so important, I think.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think we have time for a last question. If you were to give them some advice on something to be mindful of when they get started, something that, you know, often falls through the cracks, or what would that be?
Well, I think very much it's about having assumptions. Making assumptions goes back to that cultural iceberg model that I showed, that that it is important to ask questions, not to have assumptions, and to see questions and to state that in the beginning as part of my project protocol. We are a group, a learning group, and we will have open communication and we'll ask each other's things, and we may not have the answer at this moment, but we'll reflect on it, and we may come to a mutual understanding. We may agree to disagree, or we may get a new space, almost like a third space, that we can work together productively. I think that's important, not to bury things, not to allow conflict to take over and misunderstandings to turn a project into something that's not enjoyable anymore. I think that is something, having patience, developing empathy skills. I think these are for life, working in teams, living in communities. I think these are essential life skills that we are developing through our collaboration on e-twinning projects.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mary. And also, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for sharing all of your expertise and your knowledge. Before we officially close the session, just a bit of practical information. The evaluation form has been shared in the chat. So if you could all please fill in that link after the webinar has concluded, that would be wonderful. And the second one is about our upcoming professional development. We have some courses and webinars that are coming up, so please visit the course catalog on the European School Education platform to not miss any exciting opportunities. Now we are slowly moving towards the end. Thank you so much for joining us today, and many thanks to Mary. Mary, I would like to leave the floor to you for a final word or suggestion, or wrap up to share with our participants.
Well, I might take one of the chat comments, which I think is very apt to finish. one of the participants, one of you have written, I like the idea of naming our students as cultural detectives. They will be definitely energized having this role. So I think that's a wonderful way of finishing up. You know, seeing our learners, ourselves as learners, we are cultural detectives. It's not, we're going to be problem solvers. We're having an open mind. We're not going to rush and make assumptions. I think that is an open mind. I think we won't go wrong. We can't go too far wrong if we have this, take on this role and have a willingness to learn with and from others. I think, and there's such an exciting space to be working in e-twinning projects because you're learning so much all the time. It's just mind-boggling. I think it's a wonderful program, and I think we are so lucky that we have, we have this opportunity, and it's so well organized as well. Through the e-twinning support services. So thank you, everybody. And it was a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. I couldn't agree more. And thank you all to our e-twinners for joining today. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend. And I hope to see you at our next webinar. Bye, everyone.